the high oil prices because of the shortage of the supply. Now, what do we do about this? There are certain things I think we could do, both on the supply side and the demand side. And supply side, of course, is consumer groups have a tendency to blame the industry, making too much profit, expanding the refineries and all that. But of course, the industry blames the government regulation. You've discussed all that. Now, which side is correct, and perhaps both? If you could elaborate a little bit more on that. So what would you recommend the U.S. government would do and some other governments would do? The demand side, I don't think you already mentioned that with the consumers nowadays are not really responding not as much as we've seen in the 70s. I think probably because we have not reached that threshold yet. Compared to the prices then, the prices now are not as high as then, especially when you consider the inflation over the last 30 years, also the rise in income levels. So I think you should perhaps do at this time, we should do more on the supply side. So perhaps you could say a few more things on that. And one quick question at the end is that in the beginning of the talk you mentioned that some experts are mentioning perhaps $160 per barrel. And in Korea, as former minister mentioned, the crude oil price is more relevant here than refinery products, refined products. So perhaps if you could take us for next year from now, how the price of crude oil would fluctuate over the next year or so, and why?
Okay, let me give you the crude numbers first. As I said, products and crude are tied together, and so it's like a dance. They move man and woman in a dance. I think the crude prices next year about this time, assuming economic growth continues, will be someplace around $70, $75 a barrel. That's for light crude oil, Brent, or WTI. That assumes growth continues. That also assumes we don't have another serious hurricane season in the Gulf Coast. Growth continues, hurricane season, you're talking $90 oil. The supply side, you're right. Problem is, it takes forever to build refineries, even if you have the permits. It's 5 years. We didn't build the refining capacity. It's not just the United States. Europe is short 5 refineries to produce diesel fuel. So what we need to do is find a mechanism to quickly change the pattern of consumption. And again, you correctly point out the consumers are less sensitive because they're more affluent today. Although there are changes in prices to consumers. So I come back and say, look, we've hit the supply constraint. And in economic terms, some huge rents are being created, accruing to refiners, not to crude producers. And the ideal solution really starts in the United States, which is with the most unpopular step possible, a big gasoline price. I made the argument with Professor Hautacher at Harvard years ago, and we got no place. I've made the argument many times. I think what you do now is what you try to do is put in a fairly significant gasoline tax, not one that necessarily takes effect immediately, but say in a year, 2 years, or 3 years. And in the meantime, you offer to buy back at more than market values all these big vehicles. And so that essentially you take off the road these GMCs and some of the big other cars the people have bought, and you give consumers a chance to go back and buy more efficient vehicles. Because one of the things that has happened, and you fund this buyback program with about 20% of the revenue from the gasoline tax. Because 20% of the revenue is all you need. And I even do that in Korea, because I've seen an awful lot of big cars here on the roads in Korea, and I wonder how many SUVs you really need. Where I live in Colorado, you need an SUV occasionally, so I have a very old Jeep to go up the mountains or something like that, and it goes 1,000 miles a year. And the rest of the time I drive an efficient car. what you need, and so what you want to do is get the vehicle stock flow down. Now that has a couple of effects that are good. One, we know that there's plenty of surplus capacity in the world auto industry. And companies like Delphi and so on are in fact having trouble. So it provides a stimulus to the auto industry to produce much more efficient vehicles. And they make them now, it's a question of mix. And it also has the effect of helping consumers many consumers in the United States, I don't know about Korea, lease their vehicles. And the vehicles essentially have no value. Or if they bought it, they own an SUV, they can't sell it because essentially its trade-in value has gone down with the rise in gasoline prices. So, I did a little kind of analysis. We have these computerized used car sales things in the United States. And in the largest area I could find, which is about the Los Angeles auto market, which is about a quarter of the U.S. auto market, there were 13 used Priuses. Those are the Toyotas for sale. Only 13 in the whole area. And there are 15,000 within two-year-old Ford F-Series trucks that consumers have bought all over the sales. Everybody wants to get out of their vehicle. They're locked. It's an asset they're locked into, which slows the adjustment process. Now that would work. And it would drop gasoline consumption, drop diesel consumption. They do the same thing in Europe, quickly. Does it have a chance of passage if you cut other taxes and so on? No. I mean, unfortunately, as you discovered when you were energy minister, rationality in energy policy, economic rational energy policy decisions are very hard to sell to the public because it's telling the public you have to raise prices.
Yeah, well, we can go on like this, but I think that idea is very, very interesting. Actually, Dr. Verleger has to go to other place to give another talk. Thank you very much for very, very illuminating presentation. As well as we do, Koreans use twice as much energy as Japanese to produce 1 unit of GDP. Of course, our industrial structure is a little bit different, but even considering that we are so energy inefficient in this country. And as I said at the very beginning, that I don't see many people worry about electricity bill nowadays. And I just hope that we have former energy minister there, but he's no longer in the government. But I hope they hit to what you've been saying, and we should really, we consumers have to bear the price and at least save energy. Otherwise, if your scenario turn out to be true in the year 2006 and 2007, then our economy will suffer more than any other economy. And so I just hope that policymakers do something about this. But this is a very unpopular thing to do, but I think we have to face the real issue. But anyway, thank you very much for your